The urban, military, industrial lifestyle has been romanticized for a long time. And it is now time that we start to open up to real romance again in our life. Romance with the planet, with Mother Earth, with the spirit world, with the trees, with the plants, with all living beings. I think that food is a really excellent way to decolonize our minds. So the way to decolonize our minds is now through our bellies. And one of the many hats I wear is as a co-convener of the International Alliance for Localization, where we have been hosting international conferences on the economics of happiness for the past 3 years. Today I'm going to talk about connecting the dots between economics, happiness, and well-being. But I think that eco-literacy and economic literacy are interrelated. And if we want to understand what is going on in the world, we need to add economics into our framework, and maybe a popular economic, a people's economics. Most of the crises we are facing on the planet today can be linked to the global economy based on rampant consumerism, quote-unquote free trade, and corporate control. The global economy is subsidizing unhappiness. It is ridiculous and short-sighted for us to assume that we can piggyback an agenda for well-being onto one that calls for further growing the global economy. What I find most strange is that today, it is easier for people to imagine the end of the world, absolute collapse and devastation, than to imagine the end of the global economy and corporate capitalism. So one of the questions I want to ask us here is, can the God of money and the God of well-being coexist? I think that if we want to talk about a real agenda of well-being, we have to talk about localization as a way forward. And there's 3 dimensions of localization which I would like to share with you. One is regenerating our local economies, local ecologies, and local cultures. The second dimension is resisting the global economy. And the third is reimagining and visualizing a new ancient story of what it means to be alive in the world. So localization is essentially about regenerating our local economies, local ecologies, local cultures, which is what has all brought us here together. One thing I want to highlight in that is that we need to strengthen whatever we're doing with what I call the spirit of the gift culture. The economy of trust, sharing, caring, hospitality, nurturing, collaboration, seva, forgiveness, love, must be rebuilt into our communities through our work with food. Over the last 200 years, economic development can be seen as a process of monetizing relationships that had once been based on a sense of mutual caring and obligation between people and the land. We must challenge the idea of what is called the barter system as the traditional model. After more than 2 centuries of searching for an indigenous society that approximates Adam Smith's parable of the original barter system, anthropologists have concluded that it can only be imaginary. Indigenous communities, their DNA, their operating systems were not on the barter system. They were on the gift culture, a deep, serious, deep feeling of gratitude and caring and sharing with people. This is one of the great things that we need to unlearn. So we have to be careful that our food and seeds do not fall in the trap of getting commodified and commercialized by the logic of the global market. And we need to think about how to actively reduce our dependency on the money system. The infusion of money gives us a false illusion that we don't need each other. I can tell you I was talking to a friend this morning from Shillong. We were sharing how our weddings were all about people coming together and hosting the wedding. And now all of these things have been, because of infusion of money, the idea of event managers have shown up in these scenes. So the idea that we need each other to run our lives, to be together, to enjoy life, is getting diffused by the idea of money, when you can hire other people to do things for you. So I think that slow food is central to rebuilding trust at many levels. And this trust is necessary if we want to overcome the fear that has been conditioned in us, that we are somehow incapable, that only the experts know what to do, that we are alone in this world, that we don't have people with us, we don't have support, we are not connected with life, with other living beings. And this fear that we don't have enough, these fundamental fears keep us locked into the system. So the second thing I wanted to say is localization is about resisting the global economy, re-regulating our governments. So it's strange that all of the political parties, left, right, center, up, down, north, south, all agree on more economic growth as the only way forward. Even the UN and the SDGs has accepted this premise. But we have a global economy in which the right hand and the left hand don't even know what they're doing to each other. There are, I think, several parts of the global economy we need to be aware of as we do our local work. And one is what is called the free trade agreements. So free trade agreements are basically, one of them is the TTIP, or the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which is going to give new rights for corporations working between the US and Europe. A key feature of this TTIP is that in the investor-state dispute settlement, which states that companies can take legal action against those countries which they perceive as hindering potential profits. Laws on public health, environment, social protection, even anti-genetically modified moratoriums can be challenged. The Ecuador government a few years ago was ordered to pay $1.7 billion to Occidental Petroleum for canceling its contract. So these companies can come and sue governments now if they start to put up policies or regulations which prevent the pursuit of profits. These free trade agreements are being negotiated around the planet, and we need to really seriously look at those. Second thing is, in economics we have to look at is the government subsidies to corporations. So one example I can say, in the last budget, 100 crore rupees was allocated for organic farming by the government. So this sounds good until you see that 70,000 crore rupees was allocated for chemical farming. So from 1995 to 2012, the US government doled out $456 billion to support big agribusiness in spreading industrial cash crop techniques around the planet. So our governments, our tax money is going to subsidize big corporations. So we need to see how to withdraw the subsidies from these giants. The third thing I think we need to focus is on the land grabbing that is going on. As capitalism, global corporations are competing more and more for the earth's minerals, energy sources, fossil fuels, water. They are buying up huge tracts of land. We can see it in all of our countries. In the last 10 years, over 500 million hectares of land have been sold globally. And even more than land are the water markets. Goldman Sachs called water the petroleum for the next century. Investment banks are buying up water utilities, water engineering companies, and water resources worldwide through investment funds. The fourth aspect is media concentration and advertising. So we can see the increasing centralization of the media and control over the information commons, as 6 media giants today control 90% of the media markets. Advertising in particular is given to attack our sense of identity and self-esteem, which has been mentioned as one of the key elements of well-being. $450 billion are spent on global advertising every year to tell us that we are not good enough, not beautiful enough, not nice enough. Another element is development aid. We all think that development aid is good, but we can see that approximately $130 billion is given every year in foreign aid, and approximately $2 trillion is taken back from the global south back into the global north. A big chunk of approximately $600 million is for debt repayment for debts that have already been paid many times over. So we have to ask the question in this grand scheme of development aid, who's developing whom? The last thing I want to say about the global economy is its control over the education system, what we call McEducation for all. The factory schooling system in India is controlled by the Ministry of Human Resources. So the purpose is not to promote well-being or happiness, but to convert us all into human resources. And kids are taught a very basic equation, that school equals good marks, equals good degree, equals good financial package, equals more stuff, equals more happiness. So this is the fundamental stream that runs through the entire education system in India and many countries around the world. Along with this, the education system is infusing us continuously and with an inferiority complex around our local languages, around our local livelihoods, around using our hands, and around our connection with the land and the spirit world. All of this is being subsidized and supported by the global economy. So we need to stand up to that. What we talk about is to say the need to say one giant no to the global economy so that we can have many diverse yeses on the planet. So localization is about reimagining and visualizing a new story of life built on ancient cosmovisions. I like to say that science will eventually catch up to what indigenous peoples already know. So what we need to do is actually decolonize not only ourselves, but the project of well-being and happiness has to be to help decolonize the global north. The global north functions by a science and an economics that has left our inner worlds impoverished. Viewed through the cultural lens of mainstream economics, the earth looks like a dead rock populated by mindless, money-seeking robots. Reductionist, fragmented, and linear modern science has taught us that nature is inanimate, unintelligent, and separate from us. It is a resource or a commodity to be exploited. And competition and greed is the only way of life. So we need a new story. If we want to change the game, we need to change the rules. If we want to change the rules, we need to change the story. The story of well-being and happiness, which is part of indigenous communities all over the planet, is actually the story that needs to be told now to the world, because we cannot have real happiness and well-being without a deeper sense of meaning and purpose. And so I hope that we, this Slow Food Conference, we can go deeper into what actually gives us meaning and purpose. And it's not just the money system, not more and more stuff. So thank you for that. Yeah.